Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Experience Kills. It's been a little while, so we decided it's time for a podcast. This is episode 7, or the 7th podcast we've done since we restarted things at the start of the year. And with me today, as always, is Richard.
Hello. 7 doesn't sound a lot for November.
It's not. No, we probably should try and do these more regularly. Yeah. Like we used to. And I'm your host, Ben. I don't think I introduced myself at that point. So, yeah, we're going to just, we haven't really had a chat in a while, so we're just going to hang out. We're going to have a little chat. We're talking about some games. We're going to talk about some news. It's going to be great. Join us. Get comfortable.
And do you know what's been happening since we've last spoken then, Ben? Because I've been really ill.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned that you were, taken out. What was up with you?
Well, you say was. I am still on death's door.
God.
First time off work sick in 14, 15 years, right? I know I was off for a week and I'm still not well now.
Jesus, what was wrong with you, if you don't mind me asking?
Just a really, really terrible cold. It sounds lame,
doesn't
it? Like the worst reason to be off sick, but, I never go sick. This totally floored me and I'm still not right.
I mean, I had swine flu when I hear bad cold, I kind of just go, yeah, whatever. But
no, it's horrible, mate. So I couldn't even properly breathe.
Fuck.
Getting me up at night, and I was having panic attacks that I couldn't get enough air.
God. Fucking hell, man. Well, I'm glad you're on the mend and you're feeling well enough to do a podcast with us today. But that does explain why you didn't perhaps put as much into the show notes as you normally would, because you've been half dead. So.
Yeah, and because I've got a new PC, I've only just been given permission to access the Google Doc again.
That's why you had issues, right? Okay, I was wondering what that was about. But let's talk about some good news. Brexit's been delayed.
Yay! As we knew it would be. So that's good news.
We certainly hoped.
Worst news is we've got an election coming. So
yeah, that sucks. But what can you do? We won't get into too much politics, but it's worth mentioning. We dodged that bullet for a little bit longer.
Woohoo!
So let's dive into our semi-regular segment. We used to do this all the time on the previous iteration of the podcast, and that's what we've been watching. And there's something here I see, Richard, that we have both seen. So let's talk about that straight away. You saw the new Terminator film.
Mate, I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I didn't expect to, but I suppose that's what comes with having a litany of terrible sequels.
That's it.
There were low expectations for this, but it did raise the bar significantly. Good film.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Obviously, the expectations were so low that anything decent and above was going to be a win. And I think this was a really cool movie. Things I really appreciated, actually, was turning things on their head when it comes to sort of the gender stereotyping. There's some brilliant stuff in there in which they're talking about, there's a lot, because Linda Hamilton's back as Sarah Connor, and there's a lot of I was the mother of the saviour. And it's well, that's not where we're at anymore. I don't want to spoil it, but it has 3 incredibly awesome women in the lead roles from this film, and they absolutely fucking kick ass, and it was amazing. It
was a bit too self-aware, though, in that regard. I thought that was the clumsiest part of the film, was the female heroine pushing. I appreciate the characters.
Really? I mean,
yeah, they were good. They were good characters. I just felt that there were a couple of knowing winks to the fourth wall. It just seemed a bit heavy-handed.
I think it was an acknowledgement of the reason we've been force-fed the male action hero stereotype is because society has been male-driven for a really long time. We're actually seeing a change towards equality. Yeah. And I think it was an acknowledgement of the fact that, women can be just as badass as men. Let's get over this fucking stereotype already. Yeah. And I don't think you could really do that much better than that, to be honest. I think I think that there was a very... I read some interviews with Tim Miller, who's the director of the movie as well, and he was going to go even harder into the whole... change, as it were, in the status quo that they had, but they actually ended up cutting stuff back a bit. But I think it does. I mean, it wouldn't have worked if they just talked the big game and then not, played the big game, but they actually then backed it up with, I thought, 4 or 5 incredibly well done action set pieces in which everybody came off really well. I really like the character development of Dani, who is the heroine in this film, who goes from this kind of scared little girl to a believably transformed into a leader. and I thought that was quite well handled considering they only had one movie to do it in, and it sets up the.
It was kind of like a microcosm of Sarah Connor's entire journey, wasn't it? Within one film.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they could have handled that stuff by just not mentioning it so much, because they did have these strong female leads that spoke for themselves in their actions. So they could have got away with that.
I agree with you. However, I think it's the world we live in. It's the world in which we're in this transition. We're in this place of development of the social psyche, and right now, this is kind of the only way of doing it to get it over to the majority of, let's be honest, men that don't see it this way, don't understand it. So it does need to be force-fed a bit. I hope to think, both of us as fairly well-educated older guys probably get it a bit more, and you don't need to be force-fed as much, but we are talking about a Terminator film, so subtlety, probably not what you're going to get.
I guess. I was just thinking, like, if you imagine watching 12 Years a Slave or something, and a white guy walks into shot and says, "Well, I actually respect black people," it would just be weird, wouldn't it? And
I don't agree with slavery, just so you know.
Yeah.
That's bad. Black people shouldn't be treated that way. Yeah. But I mean, you are talking the difference between sort of Oscar-winning drama and Terminator. At the end of the day, Terminator is fucking robots fucking shit up, and there's a lot of that in this movie, and it's done really well. I really like the new baddie Terminator, who's kind of like the amalgamation of the two previous Terminators.
I loved that because although I really enjoyed Terminator 2. I did feel that there was less physicality in that molten metal form, right? But in this film, it's the best of both worlds. So he's got the hard shell, the hard skeleton of a T-800, is it called? Is that what it is? Yeah.
Yeah, that's Arnie's one. Yeah.
But with the liquid metal outer shell, and the two separate, don't they? So they can act independently. I thought that was really smart and gave it that really visceral sense of, impact when it starts attacking stuff, and it didn't feel like it was just melting around things and just being all soft and sappy.
Yeah, and there is a lot of...
You know what I mean? It didn't feel quite as impactful.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, there's a lot of CGI in this movie, but even then, I think the set pieces are well shot and directed. That there's only a couple of times when you're like egregiously like going, "Wow, that's CGI." I think they do some de-aging in this. They do that really well. Yeah. I think to me the clumsiest thing was, how do we get Arnie into this movie, and that opening, which leads to how we have another T-800 that looks like Schwarzenegger, is forced, but at the same time they had to think of a way of doing it, and I think that was probably the best way of doing it. So they actually give him an entirely new character.
Because that isn't just to introduce Schwarzenegger, that's also to kill off the patriarchal focus that the series has, isn't it? Because I don't want to spoil it, but when Arnie comes back, it does completely turn the tables on what the whole series is about.
I mean, we
just him coming back.
We get away from Skynet, and I think that was very important that they did that to set up a new franchise. And the way this film ends, they deal with a certain thing, but they don't deal with the overriding problem, which means there can be more. And I'm actually quite interested to see what more comes out of that. And I think where things are left at the end is really compelling, and I'm up for that. But yeah, it's always going to be difficult when you're trying to reboot, but at the same time acknowledge everything that's come before. And I think they do it as well as they can. And like we said right at the beginning, this was a film that was far better than anybody expected it to be. Yeah. And I had a great time. It was really good fun.
Really good action film. Something else that was really good about it as well, incidental really to the film. But I saw it in the new Cineworld, because we've had a new Cineworld built in Plymouth. And have you tried this 4DX thing yet?
No.
Oh, it's so good, man. It's awesome.
Really? Yeah. Really? It looks so really stupid.
Good. Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought we'll give it a crack. And
okay.
So Sarah went with me as well. And she, in the first 15 minutes, she was like, what is this? And the first action sequence after that finish, she was like, "Woo, God!" And everyone in the cinema was laughing at her because she nearly had a heart attack. But I'll explain what it is. People might not know what it is. So 4DX, all of the chairs in the cinema are on a mechanism, which means they can shake, they lift around, they sway, they tip forward and backwards. They go all over the place. They're also equipped with various other sense amplification devices, I guess you might call them. So when there's bullets whizzing round in the film, you'll hear shots of air going past your ears. If a car drives into those water barrels on a highway, you'll get splashed with water as the barrels explode. It's so good. And there's like smoke rising up through the cinema when there's fire on screen. It's really, really cool experience. I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did, but I would definitely do that again. And it adds so much to an action film like this. It's awesome. To the point
Sounds so relaxing.
No, it isn't relaxing. It's really stressful. But Sarah went from really not liking it in the first 10-15 minutes to wanting to go and see it again. In 4DX, She really, really liked it a lot. So.
I mean, it makes sense for a movie like this, doesn't it? Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, okay.
So worth trying that. Yeah.
Kind of like cinema crossed with a theme park ride, almost.
Yeah.
A bit like, I don't know, Star Tours, if you've ever done that, but probably not quite as good as that, but yeah, because it's not custom, but sort of that effect, giving you that physical connection. I've always been tempted to, there's not one near me, it's about an hour away, my nearest one of those, but maybe one of these days I'll check it out. Yeah.
Yeah, recommended if you get a chance to go to one. Enjoy that a lot.
Okay. So we just had Halloween, so I decided to watch... Actually, it looks like you did as well. You watched a scary movie for Halloween. I watched Brightburn. Are you aware of Brightburn?
I've seen that appear in the Xbox video store. I don't know what it is, though.
It's just out now for like rental and purchase and stuff on DVD and whatever. And it's made by, James Gunn is attached to it as like a producer. And they made a big deal of that at the time the film came out. But it really, I think it didn't do great because I think when you go and see this movie, it's not a big spectacle movie that we now expect from James Gunn. It's much more small scale. And basically the concept is, what if in Kansas, when Superman lands with Ma and Pa Kent, instead of becoming Superman, he goes the other way and basically becomes a really creepy, terrifying villain. And it's all kind of about, the Ma and Pa Kent in this, they're obviously not Ma and Pa Kent, but, I'm just going to use that terminology. They do everything they can to be great parents. And I think it's actually a little bit of a sort of look into the idea that children aren't just shaped by their parents. They're shaped by other children. They're shaped by society. And it doesn't matter how great they have been trying to be the best parents ever, that kids can still go wrong. They can still have issues. And the problem is amplified, of course, because this 12-year-old who's going through some shit is also got superpowers. And he starts to develop superpowers. So he ends up becoming kind of a villain. Well, not kind of a villain. He becomes straight up, basically, it's a slasher style villain. It's got a brilliantly downer ending. It's got a really good turn from the core trio. I thought the kid was very good, and both the mother and the father. And in a way, it's kind of this small movie. It's got some special effects and scares, but it's actually more about, I think, the psychological implications of a descent into evil. The kid is influenced by the ship he lands in, but you could just say, the kid has mental health issues. You could read it like that. And the problem is when stuff starts to go wrong, especially the father, he kind of turns his back on the child in a way and ends up pushing the child further down that path of evil to the point where he can't come back from it. So yeah, I thought it was fun. It's got some good kills, pretty decent special effects. It's quite, like I said, it's quite small scale. It's a tight 90 minutes, and if you can get it like I did for like a 99p rental or whatever, well worth checking out. If you're into the idea of like an Elseworld Superman story, origin story, an alternative take on it, this works fine as that. It's not going to blow you away, but I didn't feel like my 90 minutes was wasted.
Oh, that looks interesting. It's not related to Superman as such, though, is it? It's just the same sort of...
No, they get as close as they can without copyright infringement. There's a post-credit thing as well, which strongly implies something. I don't want to spoil it because it's quite fun. And yeah, it's worth watching if everybody knows who Superman is, really, don't they? Everybody understands his origin story, so it's kind of it's clear. They don't have to overly do it. It's very clear what it is without being too specific.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about you? You saw some scary stuff. I'm kind of. So what's on your list here? I saw this come out and I've seen the trailers. And I am such a fan of the first movie, the movie this is kind of a sequel to, that it's my all-time favourite horror movie. So when I saw this, I was like...
You're scared to watch it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Not for the right reasons, I know what you mean. Yeah, I went into it apprehensively because I'm a big fan of the original Shining.
Yeah.
And Doctor Sleep is the sequel to that. I'm not sure if it's truly a sequel to the film, or if it's more loyal to the book, because there's a written story by Stephen King, obviously the original Stephen King too. Speaking
to that point, right? I know a bit about this. Stephen King hated Stanley Kubrick's The Shining.
Yeah.
Hated it with a passion. He wrote a sequel to his book, The Shining, and that is Doctor Sleep. So this is an adaptation of his book, which is not really, in any way, properly a sequel to the Stanley Kubrick Shining.
Except it really tries hard to tie it together.
I've heard this. That's weird. Okay.
Yeah, so not having read the books, I can't say what the differences are and where they've made the compromises. But it doesn't feel like The Shining. I think one of the most standout points for this... if I explain where it goes, I mean, I won't go over the story of The Shining. I think most people will be aware of what happens in that movie. Doctor Sleep follows Jack Torrance's son, who survived him at the end of that film, follows him growing up with his shining powers. And it's the powers that are central to this film, and they're far more overt and I suppose visible than they ever were in the original Shining movie. It was much more, I suppose, subtle in the original film. It was just this secret power that the kid had that people talked about in hushed tones. But everything feels much more like a superhero movie now, with people extravagantly demonstrating the powers that they have. Not just Dr. Sleep himself, who's played by Ewan McGregor, that's the Danny character grown up, but there are other characters in it that have their own powers, and it follows this group of villains who seek out people with these powers to consume them, to extend their life further, and it's all very hammy, sort of horror characterizations with people enjoying other people's pain and all this nonsense. It just felt it wasn't quite as serious or unsettling as the original Shining, and it spent far too much time focusing on the powers themselves for some visual flair rather than any sense of underlying trepidation or the subtleties that the original film had. It does try and reuse some of the stuff from the original film, so it goes back to the Overlook Hotel. There's some cool moments there where old characters are revisited. There's some really good casting of Jack Torrance's wife. I can't remember what her name was in the original, but they've recast someone else as her who does a really good job. It's almost hard to tell the difference. There's a facsimile of Jack Nicholson, not quite close enough for my liking, but how could you get there? And yeah, I think it's sort of...
That's weird.
It is weird. It's respectful.
That's weird considering what I said earlier. I'm kind of amazed that they've gone that close to trying to tie it together.
Full on to try and tie them together. So
that's weird. Okay.
Yeah, it feels like a film of two parts, really. So all the new bits are where they focus on all the powers. And then when it goes back to the Overlook Hotel, that's kind of the bit that you're interested in, really, isn't it? It's nice to go back and see that and see something a bit different from it, but it never lives up to the original. But
bizarre.
It doesn't shit all over it, if you know what I mean. It's not going to ruin your memories of the original film, so it's fine.
Okay. I'm not sure how I feel about that. It kind of sounds like they've tried to take The Shining and make it into a superhero movie, which does not appeal in any way to me. So, okay. We've both also been checking out some TV. It looks like you've gone back to one of my all-time favourites. Is this your first time through Parks and Rec?
We spoke about it a couple of weeks ago. I'd been watching it on my own and got through to Series 4. I told Sarah about it. She was interested in watching it, so I started again. And I've now watched all of them.
Oh, so good.
Really good.
Truly.
I was disappointed with the end, though. I mean, Parks and Rec is one of those funny shows. It starts out on a bit of a shaky footing, doesn't it? It's got
first season, not great.
First season is just 6 episodes, and I read up on this later after I'd watched them all. The critical reception was that it was far too similar to The Office, and Leslie Knope, the central character who works in the Parks and Recreation department, is very similar in character to Michael Scott from The American Office, and that's something I noticed for myself. The mannerisms very, very close. It's almost like it's directly copied. It's not an accident. That changes after season 1, and the broadcast of hilarious characters just never gets old. Particularly Ron Swanson. I love Ron Swanson in his gruff, patriarchal, anti-government role. It's really, really funny. And, I just love that series. I didn't think it ended that great, though. It was a shame that it felt like they kind of rushed the last series to finish it off rather than give it anything physically meaningful.
It's interesting because you drew a parallel to The Office, and I think I hadn't seen The Office when I'd seen Parks and Rec, actually. Now I've also seen all of The Office, and I think the similarity towards the end is that it goes on for too many seasons because they start losing cast members, and it's the same problem The Office had. It's like continuing the product without core cast members means you lose so much of that ensemble comedy that works so well, and it's just never as good as it was when all those core cast members were there, like season 4, season 5, in the middle when it was at its peak. It's very similar to The Office like that.
I don't know. I think it was more season 7 when pretty much everyone comes back by that point. It just felt like they didn't have very much to do with them. It's like they knew it was the last one. They didn't need to take them anywhere else. And they just kind of wrapped it up in a very tidy way that wasn't very interesting, really.
Yeah, no, fair enough. So let's say you've just finished this classic. I've just started watching what is going to be the new Game of Thrones, and if you haven't watched it already, you've got to check out Watchmen. So Watchmen is set in the same universe as the comic and the film, but it's set now. So it's set the same amount of time after the events of the comic. So you're talking about 20, 25 years after the events of Watchmen. So you're living in a world which has gone through those very traumatic events. And basically, I've only watched the first episode. There's 2 episodes out now and a third coming very soon. I need to watch episode 2. But even if you're not like massively into superheroes, or even if you've not seen the original Watchmen film, and that while there are some differences with Snyder's movie compared to the comics, they are, for the most part, Snyder basically translated it shot for shot. The ending is different, and that is important because the Watchmen TV show follows the comic ending, which means there was a giant squid that showed up in the middle of a city. And kind of that does have ramifications on the TV show, whereas that didn't happen in the film. But everything else is very similar. So you could just have watched the movie. I do recommend the comic. The comic is like this comic that's always on the bestsellers list of just normal books. It is the crossover comic. It is the comic that shaped modern superheroes. It's a very important book in that regard. And if you do enjoy a superhero movie, that comic, 12 issues, can be bought very cheaply on Amazon or whatever. And it is one of those things where it will surprise you because it is quite hard going. It's very mature. It's very, very adult, and it's written like a good piece of literature. So I definitely recommend checking out that comic. I wouldn't say I love it, but it does sort of have a lot of important ramifications within the genres that we now love today. But this TV show, beyond all of that, it is beautiful to look at. It is shot and costumed and cast in a way that is just incredible. It is absolutely stunning television. It is like the epitome of, this modern era of television where we have basically cinematic quality stuff on your screen on a weekly basis. It's absolutely phenomenal. And what blew me away more than anything, the way it's shot, but also the costume design. It's got this world that they live in is close enough to ours, but they'll have these moments that pull you out and you realise, God, this is one fucked up world. Like, there is some serious issues in this world. And it's doing things to explore, in this first episode, issues of racial violence that are incredibly powerful. And it has this opening scene that flips things on its head in such an incredible way that pulls you in immediately. It's one of those things, you're watching it and it's like, this is heavy watching, this is heavy shit, but my God, I can't look away. It's absolutely amazing. Amazing television.
I really want to see that. I mean,
you've got to see it, man. You've got to see it. Yeah.
On the one hand, I was kind of hoping it was something different to the film and the comics.
Oh, it is. Oh, I mean, but it is. Yeah.
But it's telling the same story, just in a sort of different.
No, it's not telling the same story. Not at all. No, because it's set now. So it's set now after the events of the film and the comic.
Oh, okay.
So it's in the world now. Cool. Yeah. So it's set in the world now, based, with an extrapolation of what that world would be like after everything that went down. And there's little moments in this show. It opens, by the way, on a dramatic reenactment of the Tulsa race riots from the 1920s, and that really happened, and it's fucking terrible. I mean, it's the most upsetting, horrible thing. You're literally talking about the KKK riding through Tulsa on horseback, shooting black people. And this really fucking happened. And yet nobody ever really sort of knows about it or talks about it, but it's mad. And they have planes. They have planes. They're like World War I biplanes flying over, throwing grenades out onto the streets to kill people. I mean... And that really fucking happened. Just FYI. And that's what's so amazing about this, because it sets up, so it shows you this thing that really happened, extrapolates through the events of Watchmen out to the modern day, and it's like, yeah, things are bad in this world. Like, really, really fucking bad. Where the police have to wear masks, because if they don't, criminals will go after their families. They'll find where they live, and they'll murder everybody they care about. So they're all in masks. Like, so everyone's in masks. So it's this thing of like, who can you trust? Who are these people? It's really, it brings up lots of really interesting questions and makes you really think about stuff, as well as being, because it's not superheroes, because in Watchmen, all but one character is just a masked vigilante. There's no powers involved. Yeah. So that's the world that they're in, where like there are masked vigilantes, even though they're illegal masked vigilantes, the police are masked vigilantes. So it's kind of like, it's mad, and you've got to watch it. It's absolutely stunning TV. It's that must-watch TV that, now Game of Thrones has left us, is like right there. And it's just, it's stunning. Stunning.
Oh, no, I am interested in seeing that. I don't know how I'm going to get it. I guess I'll have to wait till it's all out and then I can buy it. Or...
You could like do Now TV or something, can't you? There are ways if you don't have Sky.
Yeah, I don't like Now TV.
Okay, fair enough. I'm guessing it's like a 10-episode season, probably, going by the HBO standards. It's not going to be huge, so yeah, it will be out on Blu-ray and 4K, and I probably, if you can watch 4K, I would do it like that, because the colours and the way it's shot and the lighting, it's just cinematic all the time. Absolutely stunning. It's just incredible. Absolutely incredible stuff. Yeah. I hope it continues as good as that first episode. Man, it absolutely blew me away.
Looking forward to that one. That sounds awesome.
So I think that takes us to the end of the what we've been watching. So that was quite a long one. So let's get into some... before we get into games and news, I want to talk about a little bit of hardware that I got my hands on yesterday. And I'm in love.
Rub it in.
And... I got the Xbox One Elite Series 2 controller through the post yesterday, a little bit earlier than expected, so I was quite happy about that. I know, Richard, you're waiting till Christmas, is that right?
Yeah, as we've been recording, mine's just been dispatched, but no, I'm not allowed it until Christmas anyway, so yeah.
I do feel bad for you. It's amazing. So things that I've really appreciated, immediately bumped up the tension on the joysticks to be like the 360 controller days, which it's the controller I've always loved for those joysticks were perfect, and now I can have that again. Made me very, very happy. The paddles are a bit shortened, so they're not as in the way on the back, so I'm feeling like they're a bit easier to use straight away. I've been playing a lot of Call of Duty with it already, and I've got the triggers on the half setting, so between the shortest option and a normal trigger, and I'm finding that works really, really well for that.
How do they compare to the old Elite then? Because that was just a one-step trigger. It's either on or...
So totally the half trigger is a little longer than the shortest option on the Elite, and then I think the short trigger on this new one is shorter than the shortest setting was on the Elite, so it's very much just a tap, I think. I haven't had an Elite for a while myself, but that's just based off of because mine had the peeling problem, so I got rid of it. With the controller grips. The grips on this now are fully rubberized all the way around. It feels, in general, the whole thing feels like it's a bit better made, a bit more solid. And I think one of the things that really adds to that is the fact that the battery is now internal and rechargeable. So the whole unit is more like a contained thing. Yeah. Talking about that, it's really cool how you can charge it on the charging dock, which is included in the case. You can remove the charging dock from the case and therefore charge it anywhere. You can also charge the controller by just plugging it in directly into the back of the controller into a USB-C connection, typical kind of charging port. So you got 3 options there for charging it, which is really good. What else? I'm just trying to think. That's the main things.
That USB-C connection is one of the biggest things for me, sad as that sounds. But the fiddly USB connection on the Xbox controllers is so annoying. And particularly on the Elites. I've got 2 Elites at the moment. And both of them, it's a real hassle to get that plugged in properly. And charging it always feels really flaky. So hopefully they've improved that with a USB-C connection now.
The charging dock is actually really nice because it's got these 3 little connectors, and if you leave it in the case, you can't put the controller in the case without it sitting on the dock. So you just drop it into the case, and it'll immediately charge, and that's how I plan on using it, so that it's always fully charged, basically, with modern recharge. Sorry?
How does it connect within the case to charge?
So there's like a little hole at the bottom on the underside of the case, which has got like a little plug you can remove, and then the cable just fits through there into the case.
Right, but into the controller itself, you just place the controller in, do you? Is it wireless charging or something?
So how does the controller sit on the charger?
Yeah.
So you just literally drop it into the case, and it just sits on these 3 little pin connectors that connect to the bottom of the controller. Like there's 3 little exposed holes, I guess, on the bottom of the controller. Right. So it has its own sort of proprietary connector for the dock.
Got it. So it's not wireless charging as such, it does plug into the case, right?
No, it is physical. Man, wireless charging would have been cool, but that would have been a whole more expensive thing. And it's already expensive. Yeah. So the other thing I noticed, this is a big difference actually. The guide button is no longer like a depressible button. It's just a tap button.
Oh.
So it clicks in, but it doesn't. You doesn't have that throw that the traditional button has. Where it has like a recessed depression where it can go right in. Yeah. So it's just like a much more physical button. It's kind of like the button on the front of the X console.
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah. So so it's like
just clicks.
Just clicker.
Yeah, which takes a bit of getting used to because you're so used to turning off the console, pushing and holding that button in and stuff, and now it's got a different feel to it. But I'm not sure why they made that change, but it all feels good. It feels solid. Maybe that was the thing. It's like an aesthetic kind of cohesiveness to the whole controller's design where it just feels very sturdy, I guess. It feels... I don't know if I'm right about this, but it feels lighter than the original Elite. You'll have to do that comparison for me when you have your 2 next to each other, but it definitely felt lighter to me because I remember the Elite feeling a bit on the overly hefty side, and this could be because it's not using rechargeable normal batteries, so not having to put that weight in there. Maybe the rechargeable that's built in isn't as heavy or something. I'm not sure, but it doesn't seem to have that weight to it as much.
The bulk of the weight in an Elite is within the handle grips because it's artificially weighted to make it feel like a hefty piece of equipment, right?
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that. I always thought the original Elite was a bit too heavy, so I'm kind of glad they've stepped that back a bit. Yeah. At least that's what it felt like to me.
I mean, it was always
it feels.
But it did feel slightly too heavy.
Yeah.
Good.
Just
dialed that back. Good.
Yes, I think so. And I know it's the same shape and everything, but it feels a bit more svelte, a bit more streamlined. There's something about the design. It feels a little less bulky in the hands, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I could be wrong about that.
It looks like more of a one-part design. So I think previously, talking about the X button that's more clicky now, I think on the original Elite, it did feel like you're pushing that hard because it's got a lot of travel in it. It feels like you've got to push it hard. But that top unit that button sits on was a separate part, and it always felt like that was slightly malleable, like it was pushing against the frame of the controller itself when you were pushing that button in too hard.
Right, okay.
It looks more of a single unit now, so you're not pushing the button as hard because it's that clicky type, and also it's part of the same shell anyway. It's just a single casing, isn't it? So the whole design is much more enclosed, which seems to be going with Microsoft's design ethos across their entire hardware range. So I've just got a Surface Laptop 3, which is notable for just having no joins whatsoever. I can't see a single screw hole. It just feels like it's come out of space. It's like off 2001. It's like the obelisk, you know.
Amazing.
So yeah, that is their design ethos now. It looks like just make everything look as impenetrable and seamless as possible. So that sounds like they've done a good job on that.
No, it's a beautiful bit of kit. I mean, same things as Series 1. The D-pad is fantastic. That swappable D-pad, great for fighting games, for example. I love that. I've got the cross one on the minute just because unless I'm playing something that needs a lot of diagonal directional input, I don't really feel the need for the other one, but it's really nice to be there. You've got the different stick sizes, which is great. They work really well. Obviously, that all still feels really good. Like I mentioned, the paddles are a bit shorter, but the inputs feel maybe a little bit clickier on the back. A little bit sturdier again. Like that does seem to be the way the whole thing's going with this. I just think it is that next evolution of the controller. It's been done really well. Obviously, time will tell when it comes to durability and all of that stuff and reliability. But right now, yeah, it feels great. I'm really glad to have an Elite again. I can already feel I'm playing better at Call of Duty. I've seen my kill death ratio go up pretty much immediately. So that's definitely a big plus. I think that... Have you got any more questions about it, or you just want to quietly wait until you get your hands on?
I'll tell you what. I'm toying with the idea of buying a second one and just hoping Sarah doesn't notice that I've already got one, and then I can have my official one for Christmas.
Hilarious. Nefarious and hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, so
she don't know the difference, does she?
No, they're all the same. They're all the same. She's not going to be able to tell the difference between the Series 1 and 2, is she? You could just be like, oh, that's just the one I've had for ages. Yeah. Anyway, so I think that brings us to the end of part 1. We will be back shortly with part 2, where we get into some games. And we're back, and we've got a crap ton of games to talk about, most of which are ones we haven't reviewed on the channel. So this gives us a chance to talk about some games that we've just been playing and kind of review them now for you if you're interested. Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to kind of go over the games that we're probably going to talk about now at the top so people know what to expect. We're going to talk a little bit about Control, Borderlands 3, Ghost Recon Breakpoint, Age of Wonders Planetfall, Destiny 2, The Outer Worlds, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and I believe you added to the list Soma, Richard, is that right?
Yeah, I know it's well old, but I just picked it up in a sale this week, and flipping heck, that's a good game.
Let's talk about Soma. I mean, I've loved it for a long time. I played it on PlayStation and then again on Xbox.
Did you finish it?
No.
Mate, you need to finish it. I was checking your achievements because you're the only other person on my Xbox friends list who's played this, and you did not get very far on Xbox.
Did I not?
No.
I thought I got quite far, but okay.
No. All of the achievements are like story related. There's 10 of them, and you've got, I think, the first 2.
Oh, okay. I need to get back to that then. All right, fair enough.
You are a long way off the end, and you miss out on some seriously awesome story revelations. So Soma's this idea of a guy who has some sort of brain injury, right? And he's going in for therapy. He you start off in his flat. You've got to drink this like magic sort of medicine thing. You know, when you go for scans in hospital and they ask you to drink a liquid so they can pick up properly on a scan what's going on. He has that.
Yeah.
And then goes for a scan in this weird hospital. It doesn't really quite look like a hospital because it's virtually shut down. So it seems to be some sort of fringe experiment going on. And they do a brain scan on him just to see what's happening with his injuries. And the next thing he knows, he wakes up from the chair he was in and he's in a completely different place. Like, completely different. Not even the same time zone. So he went to sleep in this chair in 2015. He wakes up basically 100 years later in an underwater installation, and everything has gone wrong. And the idea of this game is exploring how that happened, why he's travelled forward 100 years, why he is in this place, what even is he now? Is he the same person that he was? And he encounters all these other characters in this underwater laboratory, and they appear to think they're human, but they're clearly not. So he encounters these robots that are really, really distressingly disfigured. So they're kind of in heaps on the floor. They're melted shapes of metal melded with this weird, almost cancerous, turmeric looking black growth coming out of them, and they're all plugged into walls and stuff, and you end up unplugging some accidentally and killing them, and it feels terrible. Some of them are asking you to help them out, and you don't even recognise what they are, where the voice is coming from, because it looks so horrific. It's just this terribly affecting body horror concept, melded with some really clever sci-fi touches, exploring the idea of humanity, what it is to be human. And I'm not going to go too deep into it because there's some revelations going through this game that will have you thinking, oh my god, what the fuck, what if? And you need to kind of experience them for yourself. But suffice to say, I played it through to the end yesterday, and I loved every minute of it. It's not the best looking game, it is quite old now, but just in how it relays its story and what it reveals about its characters and about you as the central character, it really reflects an internal horror. Like it'll make you think, oh my god, what if that did happen? And it all feels entirely believable, like it could actually happen. So I would definitely recommend anyone to try that out. I think on the Epic Game Store it's free this week as it happens. So check that out if you've got a PC that's good enough to run it. I ended up buying it on Xbox anyway because I felt like I wanted the achievements. You know what I'm like.
I know what you're like. So the reason I checked it out on Xbox, if I remember rightly, is because I wanted to check out what the narrative mode was like, because you can basically take out the threat of being killed in the game and just play it as like an exploration, almost like a walking simulator. And I actually quite liked the way that played without having to like run away from the killer monsters robots more. How did you play it?
I played the proper version. I didn't feel like there was too much running away. It doesn't throw that stuff at you. I thought it was notable for how much it lets you explore at your own pace, but there's always that threat that something might happen. It gets that balance really well. But the majority of the game is looking around environments like dilapidated laboratories, exploring out on the seabed actually, when you can get out of stations and try and get to other stations under the sea, and trying to solve puzzles. So it might be deciphering different codes to get into computer systems, finding stuff to put together to build robots. There's all sorts of different things that you have to do that don't feel like busy work. They make sense within the story, and it always feels like meaningful work that you're doing, and there's a meaningful journey there. None of it interrupted too much by pointless jump scares. It does a really good job of handling suspense and challenging you just enough with out of the blue surprises that you do have to run away from, and there is a danger of death occasionally, but just enough to keep you on your toes, not enough to be not annoying. So it gets that really fine balance really well.
Yeah, no, I think I've talked about how good it is in the past as well. It's good to hear you've got on board there and recommend it as well. It's an absolute classic. I think it's a good 2 or 3 years old now, maybe more. But no, it's a fantastic horror experience, like really good. So while we're briefly touching upon horror, I just want to mention that if you've not checked out Control yet, my God, you need to check out Control. And this is a good season for it. You know, it is quite the horror game in many ways. And Richard, have you gone back and finished it yet?
Yep, full 1000 Gs, all done.
Good man. You joining me in the 1000 GS club for Control. Worth mentioning for me more than for you, because I rarely do 1000 gamer score on anything, and I just loved every minute of Control.
It's not the most challenging 1000 Gs, but
Nope. That's why I did it.
Yeah, you do have to put in some effort to get there, I guess. It's just, you know, it doesn't all fall into your lap, does it? You've got to go and seek it out. It's not hard.
Yeah, it's kind of like you know exactly what you got to do.
Yeah. But so. I think the fact that you did it speaks volumes. It does.
Oh, I just love that world, mate. Oh my God, such a.
What was your feeling about how the story progresses? Because last time we spoke about it, I think both of us were reasonably early on. I was about quarter in. You were about halfway through. I think the setup to Control is really fantastic, and some of the feedback that we saw from the press at the time of its launch and just before was that this is quite a David Lynchian sort of experience, with some esoteric characters in the janitor, showing you
where the janitor's character goes when you get to the bit with him in the bowels of the facility of the oldest house. That was brilliant, especially the visual flair of him being on vacation. I loved that. I was so cool. Just from a kind of camera effect standpoint. You gonna ask me how I thought about the ending?
Yeah, because I thought that towards the end it lost its pace a bit and became a bit diluted. I wasn't sure it really delivered on the beginning for me.
I kind of see what you mean, because you do get to a point where you've seen all the enemies, where you've fought the bosses. There is a boss that actually sort of shows up more than once that is weirdly not explained much of, and I hope they explore that more. I think what kept me interested and what kept me coming back for more was just that world, was finding more documents to read. I think maybe from a gameplay point of view, it starts to run out of sort of encounter design a little bit with actual set pieces and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But, you know, you do still feel like by the end, when you've got all the powers unlocked and everything, or nearly all the powers unlocked, you feel like such a badass. And it is still very fun how you can combine all the different psi powers with the different gun builds that you can create as well.
Yeah.
I still think
it doesn't. Yeah. That stays strong right to the end.
Yeah.
I think you're right that the more you build up your abilities and the stronger that you get, and the more rounded your skill set is, it is really fun to play. And Remedy are great at that. They did the same for Alan Wake. I mean, that was a really strong narrative-based game, but somehow they built an arcade game off it in Alan Wake's American Nightmare, didn't they? Because the central core action was so strong. They've kind of done that here too, but it feels like they haven't quite got the level of narrative they needed to pull through to the end. I mean, granted, what you're saying about all of the different documents and the recordings, all that adds to the lore and the atmosphere as you're playing through, but there is a noticeable lack of a central story arc, or at least a strong one, that leads you to a satisfying conclusion. I mean, is it spoilers to say it's got kind of a false ending, and then...
Yeah, I was going to talk about that. I mean, I think that's quite cool, and then where you end up, the level you end up in after that is quite fun to do, and it's different. Even if it was a bit predictable, that's where they were going.
Yeah.
I liked the connection between her and her brother, and where they came from, and how that is sort of drip fed as you slowly unveil more and more of what it was. I don't think it's the strongest part of the game. The strongest part of the game are the optional side bits. Definitely. And the reading, and fighting the weird objects of power. And there's just so much in that world that they can do now.
Yeah.
There's so many places they can go. I am really excited to see what they do with this DLC. Sorry, what was that?
Hopefully they bring more Alan Wake into it. But
Well,
I think the main failing is in the main character herself. I think it's the fact that she doesn't really seem to care very much about what's happening, and that rubs off on the player. It did for me, at least.
she does have a sort of disaffectedness to her, but I kind of think that's intentional. She's someone that's undergone trauma, and she's also, strangely at home in the oldest house. And that does connect into some of the narrative stuff that we get towards the end of the game. Obviously, we don't want to spoil it. And I think maybe we're going to get more of that in the DLC. I really hope they can flesh some stuff out. This DLC, I think, is important. I don't feel like it was made while they were developing the game. I feel like they're going to now do DLC based off of how well the game has been received, and that the DLC, they will be taking on board the feedback that they've heard. At least that's my hope.
I'm kind of hoping the opposite, I sort of hope that they cut stuff from the final game to release as DLC, and that would explain why it feels like a bit of a patchwork at the minute with some holes towards the end. It feels like we haven't seen the end yet. So yeah, I hope that's why they've got that DLC coming to finish it off.
Perhaps. Yeah, you might be right. It could, development time is finite, and so are resources. So they might have just got to a point where it's like, we need to ship this. This has to come out. We can't, it's the Halo 2 problem. This doesn't have an ending, yeah. But oh well. It needs to come out. I don't know about that though, because it does have an ending, because it did do the false ending, like you said. There is a very conscious beat there. So it doesn't feel like something was just cut. But at the same time, I want more. I loved it. I really love that world that they're creating, and the fact that they're creating a shared universe for all their shit. Bring Quantum Break in as well. Why not? Let's have all of it.
Yes, please.
Let's do it all connected. It'd be fantastic. So yeah, I mean, they can't do that though, can they? Because the actor who plays Jesse played a character in Quantum Break. Or maybe they can. They probably could make that work, actually. Now I think about it, why not? But yeah, Control. Again, good time of year to play it. Absolutely loved it. Check it out. Let's talk about a game here that I know you don't want me to spend too much time on, and I'm not going to. I played Borderlands 3. So yes. I got this around launch. I played like 2 or 3 days of it pretty solidly with some friends, and I haven't been back to it since. Basically, it's more Borderlands. Mm-hmm. It's fine. I haven't finished the story or max leveled my character or anything like that. I know some of my friends have. It's fine. It's fine.
It's exactly what I expected it to be, because I really liked Borderlands 1, and then I can't remember a game I've bounced off so hard as Borderlands 2 after loving the first one. I played a hell of a lot of Borderlands 1. And Borderlands 2, I got like halfway through it and I thought, I don't like this game. And then I refused to play it ever again. Despite friends saying, okay. Oh, please come back, we'll just finish it. I was like, nope, never playing that again. So I don't know what it was, but I really, really disliked Borderlands 2 after a little while. It's like, when you've eaten bad chicken or something. I don't know. I just had a reaction to it. So I can't really rationalise it, but I'm definitely not going to be playing Borderlands 3.
So there's definitely some improvements. Borderlands 3, the shooting is better than 2. The actual feeling of the shooting has improved. They've kept that cel-shaded art style, but at the same time, they have developed it to make it look like a modern game. It looks very crisp. I think everything looks really nice, but still has that distinct Borderlands feel to it. There's a lot more variety in the locations now, because you get off of Pandora, you get to go to whole different planets. They really involved the storyline. They bring in, as they always do, all the other characters that have come before, and everything kind of connects. So all the player characters that were in the previous game show up as NPCs. So they really do try and build on that universe. It's a case of if that universe resonates with you or not. The way it's written, the way it's characterized, the way it's set up. That sounds to me like what you bounced off of was probably a lot of that side stuff, because you either enjoy the way Gearbox writes these things with the kind of dated humour and characterization, or you don't. And For me, I'm kind of over that. Clearly, there's still an audience out there for it, or who can look past it and just enjoy the loot sort of loop. But
I think that's
there are so many games.
It is that, I suppose, juvenile sense of humour that exemplifies Borderlands. I see it in other things as well. I mean, Grand Theft Auto is another series I've bounced off because I just cannot ignore the gross out, sort of childish, brash humour that's in it. It just, it doesn't gel with me. Not that I'm a particularly serious person. It's just not very sophisticated, is it?
No. I think the problem with Rockstar is they think it is. And that's the issue I think they think they're writing fucking Shakespeare, is the tone I get from them, and yet they're writing, Michael fucking Bay movies at the best.
Yeah.
So there's an arrogance to what they do that I really have issue with. Same, I have that with Red Dead as well. Yeah. I feel like they think they're making like fucking the Citizen Kane of video games, and no, it's just cowboys, guys. Like, chill out. But at the end of the day, their open worlds are intricately system built as well. So I mean, there is some incredible technical prowess there, whereas maybe not so much in Borderlands. It's fine. It's fine. It's one of them. And let's talk about quickly another one of them, which is Ghost Recon Breakpoint. So
I don't know birth, but apparently it's had bad reception, right?
I don't know why I bought this, Richard. I can't help myself. Clearly,
it's on sale already.
I know. I actually
got it.
Like by a third, I actually emailed Microsoft and said, "Can I get my money back so I can buy it cheap?" And they went, "No," which is understandable, because it was like 3 weeks later. But I was quite amazed to see within a month it have a third off. Yeah, I was like, "Oh my god!" It's not that bad. It's just incredibly uninspired, and sort of there's no ambition here. So they've made the sequel to Wildlands. Wildlands was pretty good. I enjoyed that. That was a fun game. This is more of that, though, without some of the Wildlands stuff. For example, no AI teammates if you're playing solo, which is bizarre.
So they've cut stuff out.
Yeah, they've cut stuff out. But supposedly this is a creative decision because they wanted to make it more of a survival experience. But then they forgot to add the survival experience.
Right.
Because there's nothing in here really that makes you like, there's no like food, water, drinking, there's no, having to craft stuff to survive. That's just not in the game. So I'm not really sure. It doesn't feel finished. It's perfectly technically fine. The game looks fine, plays fine. I've heard it's buggy in places, but I haven't experienced them, so I can't talk to the bugs. But to be honest, I've not put that many hours into it because I heard about all the problems, and now what Ubisoft is planning to do to actually address them, which sounds like a pretty major overhaul of a lot of the game. So I was like, all right, I'm going to put this down for now, and I'll come back to it when they start, changing up the experience. But yeah, I mean, this has had like a knock-on effect in a major way, which we'll talk about in news. But yeah, it was a massive flop for them, basically. It just felt unambitious, and which is strange because I think Ubisoft have been on a real kind of tear recently. Like, you look at the last couple of Assassin's Creed games, and they've done a lot of new stuff that's really changed up that franchise. So to see such a sort of a sequel like this come out in a way that felt like it was rushed and didn't feel like, the elements that they wanted to change and move it in, they've just not really implemented them. So it's really strange, like, that they made these changes. So they're going to be putting the squad mates back in, I was reading. They're going to be bringing more survival elements into the game. And it's like, well, why did you not wait to release it? Like, it's not like you're not making money. So, yeah, it's a very strange choice.
Yeah,
I was going to say...
Choice to wait is vindicated then. I sort of...
Yes.
I have this thing with Ubisoft games. I don't think I ever get them at launch now. Because either they're terrible or they're going to get better a couple months down the line when it's half the price. So...
I don't think... When was the last terrible one?
Watch Dogs.
The second one?
First one.
Oh, okay. You're going back a while, mate.
Yeah.
That's the start of the generation. I mean, Jesus.
Well, yeah, but I was pretty burned by Watch Dogs 1.
Okay. And I don't think it was terrible.
I bought it first full price at launch. And I thought, I ain't doing that with a Ubisoft game again.
It wasn't. Do you really think it was terrible?
I think compared, I suppose it's relative to the hype, isn't it? Because that was bigged up for like 2 or 3
It was
years
hyped,
beforehand. And aside from the technical downgrades that it had, I just didn't think it was very inspired. There's that word again, you've used it. A lot of Ubisoft games feel quite anodyne and cookie cutter. That certainly did. And I just thought, well, I'm not in a rush to play a game like that. It's something that I might waste a few hours on down the road, but it's not something that I need to get embroiled in launch day hype for, because it's just not that exciting. So I tend not to buy Ubisoft games very early on.
There's a bit of a consistency thing right now, because some people are very underwhelmed by The Division 2, for example. I actually think it's a really, really good sequel. Now that I'm deep in the end game, problems have arisen where it's like there isn't actually a great deal to do in this end game. However, it did take me a good 40 or 50 hours to get to the end game, so I'm not exactly sure if you can say that wasn't, say, a good value proposition. I certainly got a lot of game out of it before getting to that point. And they are now starting to bring out... One of the biggest problems with The Division 2, for example, was a kind of a lack of story resolution from the first game. And now in the free DLC, it is free, this story DLC that's coming out, you can get that. They are slowly resolving storylines and actually bringing that to conclusions and stuff like that. But that has also had effect on their... its sales were slightly underwhelming, unlike Breakpoints, which were fucking catastrophic. Yeah. But that's had an effect on Ubisoft's future plans as well. So it's kind of like... But then you compare it to Assassin's Creed Odyssey, which was an absolutely incredible game, which to me is one of the best games of the generation. I absolutely love that game. So there is perhaps a consistency issue across all these studios, because Ubisoft is absolutely fucking massive. So it feels like maybe they're not sort of keeping an eye on their projects closely enough to actually hit those high standards every time.
It's funny how that happens, isn't it? I mean, maybe we could move on to Call of Duty, because that feels like a similar case study between what Treyarch have done, which is invariably not great, compared to what we see with the new Modern Warfare, which is pretty great.
So yeah, happy to talk about that. You haven't played it yet, no?
I've played the first couple of missions, so I have got it.
Okay. You did get it? Oh, I wasn't sure. Cool, good.
Yeah, I did get it, but I've not played too much of it yet, because I've been playing various things.
Okay, so let's talk about this campaign first then.
Yeah, go on.
So you're a couple of missions in. Have you've experienced Piccadilly Circus?
Yes.
Because that makes No Russian look like a fucking tea party.
Mate, yeah, I know.
When I saw where that was, I was like, oh, this is going to be hard. Yeah. And it was.
Yeah.
It was brutal. I don't want to spoil it, but it does a really cool thing of affecting the character you're playing as in that mission, which you may not have experienced yet as you're still only early on.
That was the last thing that I played, was the Piccadilly section.
Right, without spoilers, there's a mission coming up very shortly where that character then has to clear a house in North London, looking for the terrorists.
Right.
And you can play it in various ways. You can go in there guns blazing, killing everyone you see, or you can play it much more carefully, only trying to take out combatants, people, pulling weapons on you, shooting first. And that affects dialogue, because what we've got in this new Modern Warfare is a reflection of where, strangely enough, modern conflict has gone, where bad guys aren't obvious anymore. You can't just say every person from the Middle East is a bad guy. And you haven't maybe met the character of Farah yet, but she's incredible. She's this female resistance leader. And you do get to play as her in parts of the game as well. And basically it's this idea that there are good people in that part of the world who are just fighting to survive. Yeah. And they are oppressed and they are struggling, and you can't just tar them all with the same brush. And it does a really good job of getting that across, which is not the kind of nuance I expected from Call of fucking Duty.
No, you wouldn't expect that, would you? And there's no reason why they would have to do that. So I'm really pleased if they... I want to go back to it now and see that for myself now, because I'm really intrigued about how deep it pushes into that furrow, because that is a brave thing to do with the Call of Duty crowd. Not to stereotype them, but it's sort of casual gamer territory, isn't it?
Yes.
Not particularly the crowd that would be looking for anything particularly deep from this medium. But if they find something in there that makes reflect on what popular culture is telling them about that area of the world. Great, that is what we need.
Don't get me wrong, there are some tonal issues. I don't want to spoil it for you, especially as you're playing it, but there's a couple of moments where a player in control and you're like, I'm controlling someone during this? Okay. And then you may have heard in the headlines that they've equated the highway of death in this game, and they've actually said it was a Russian thing rather than an American thing. And I can see what they're saying about that criticism in a particular level. However, it's all set in a fictional country, so it's not exactly the same thing as the Highway of Death. I think probably what's happened here is that they've made this cool set piece and they just didn't know their history, and it didn't get caught.
What is it?
So this was in the first Iraqi war. There was a situation where a bunch of, I believe it was Iraqi military and civilians, were retreating along this road, and the Americans bombed the fuck out of them. But it was an armoured column. You know, it was armoured infantry, it was tanks, and they basically A-10'd the entire thing. Right. So, yeah, it was a war crime. The way it's talked about now is it was a war crime. Obviously, at the time, it was considered an act of war, as in during a war, and therefore justified. However, you know, we look back at these things and maybe with history and hindsight, you realise things could have been done better. So there is a level in this game which is similar to that. They use the terminology Highway of Death, which may have just been because it was a translation from the language that was being spoken in the game. They may have just been completely unaware of the significance of this particular event. But they should have caught it. You know, they should have maybe not said that. But, you know, so there is controversy, but I think the campaign for the most part is very strong. It's like 6-7 hours. It's got some nice choice options, great set pieces, harkens back to the original Modern Warfare in all the ways you'd want. You know, it has sort of 3 playable characters, which all kind of give a slightly different perspective on the conflicts, which I think is well done. There's some really good stuff with night vision and stuff at night and sneaking around, and it just feels like it's a slightly more thoughtful experience. Certain levels are very much about, you're not just shooting everyone, you're thinking about when to go loud, you're thinking about when to actually fire your gun, and that's not always the best answer to a problem.
Yeah.
And that's not the Call of Duty I remember.
Well, that's clear from Piccadilly, because there's so many civilians knocking around. You'd think,
yeah,
shit, I've really got to be careful when I actually bring my gun out here, when shit is kicking off and there's explosions and people standing on top of cars shooting through windscreens. Even with all of that going on, you think, well, I've got to be controlled here because there's so many people running around.
And that level does a fantastic job of getting your adrenaline up, of getting your fear up, of making you want to enact revenge, right? So they do a thing there where they make the player feel as close as humanly possible to the way in which that character would feel in that moment. Obviously, you're never going to feel exactly like that, but it gets you to that point where it's like, I just want to fuck up these guys. I can't believe they fucking did this. And you're so angry, and yet, yeah, you're having to control your actions much like that person in that situation would. And I think that's a really clever piece of design, and right at the beginning of the game it sets out this situation, and it's just like, the only issue I had at the end of that level is when you get your introduction of Price comes back, right? Yeah. Mr. Facial Hair, and he basically says, it's alright son, if you join me we don't have to follow the rules of engagement. And it's like, oh, okay, cool, so we're just gonna be murderers now, good stuff. And it's but it's not. I mean, it's kind of like, yeah, you don't ever get to play as Price, which I think is a very smart, conscious decision. He is the cover star for Call of Duty, as it were. He's the draw, but you get to sort of play opposite him, which is quite nice.
That's smart, because you kind of want to see him on screen, don't you?
He's great. He's great. So I won't talk any more about the campaign because I don't want to spoil it for you. Let's talk about the multiplayer. It's brilliant. It's my favourite Call of Duty multiplayer this generation, probably. Like, it's really, really good. So they've slowed things down a little bit. Sprint, for example, feels slower. Your loadouts are back. Your guns you want are in there. You've got loads of customization, and there's leveling on the weapons, but you can customize the weapons as well. Loads of unlocks, just constantly giving you stuff your guns are leveling up, your characters are leveling up, so all the time you've got stuff to try out and experiment with. You've got your different custom builds, some really nice level design I've been really enjoying. Look, I'm not the most hardcore Call of Duty player in the world. I'm not that kind of person that will play it, religiously. But right now, when I sit in front of my Xbox and I've got maybe 20 minutes to do something, or half an hour, I'm booting up Call of Duty and jumping into a team deathmatch game, because the loads are quick, you can get into the game quickly, and immediately have a fun time. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Dude, we're going to have to play some multiplayer. I didn't realise you had it, so I really want to get in there with you. I haven't tried the co-op stuff. Everything I've read tells me it's shit. So I'm not really too interested in trying any of the co-op stuff. But the multiplayer itself is great.
What is the co-op stuff? Is it the same as
It's Spec Ops.
Right, yeah.
It's a type of Spec Ops. And it's just meant to be really unfinished and buggy and uninspired and just dull and do nothing new. The multiplayer is doing a few things new. We've got Gunfight, which is these 2-on-2 very rapid, small-scale rounds, which I'd love to play with you, Richard. They're really good fun. I was playing some of that earlier. You've got like team deathmatch options now, where you can do 6-on-6 or 10v10, which gives a completely different feel to team deathmatch, having 10v10. And then there's Ground War, which are these 32-on-32 Battlefield style control point multiplayer games, which I don't love, because it feels like a Battlefield game if they hadn't spent the last sort of 10 years refining a Battlefield game. Do you know what? Yeah. It's like, it feels rough. It feels like, you have to stand really close to that flag to capture it, which basically means you're stood out in the open, which basically means anybody trying to capture the flag is going to get shot. Time to kill is very short because it's Call of Duty, so it's much harder to play these large-scale games. And then when everything starts going crazy with the kill streaks as well, it just becomes fucking chaos. I mean, that's fun in its own way, but I'd much rather play TDM or Search and Destroy or Headquarters or any of those modes than I would Ground War. It just doesn't feel like Call of Duty, but it's kind of cool that they've experimented with it, I guess, and they'll patch it and refine it and stuff over the coming months, I'm sure, but it just feels a bit, not for me right now.
You mentioned that it's slowed down a bit then, but the pace of running and stuff at least, but it's still frenetic enough to be what you'd imagine as Call of Duty, because I don't particularly like that myself. I prefer much more of a sedate pace in my shooter and being able to hang. I'm basically the medic in Battlefield that tries.
Call of Duty's always been a bit more aggressive than Battlefield, I think, in the way you play it. However, what I mean by slowed down is just walking speed and sprinting speed definitely feels slower to me than even World War II did. It just feels like you put a bit more thought. You're opening doors in this. You can close doors, so you're clearing rooms. You're checking corners. So it plays. I think they're trying to recreate the way in which a tier 1 operator would clear a battle space. So it's trying not to just be run, and then just reward people who are quick at ADS. It's more like being a bit more thoughtful, being a bit more calculated, learning those maps. It actually reminds me more of Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the original back in the day, like Call of Duty 4, wasn't it? Yeah. And that was the classic experience which I put hundreds and hundreds of hours into. And this is the kind of I'll never spend that much time with a Call of Duty again. I just don't have that time. Yeah. But I would want to with this one more than I have any in between. So
maybe I'll give it a try. It's been a while since I played Call of Duty game online, actually. I think the last one was probably World War II.
Come on, we're going to do that 2v2 mode. It's great because the rounds are so quick, and it's one death, you're done. There's 2v2, you have first to 6 basically wins. You just go through these maps, everybody gets the same gun, at the start of the map, and you just, they're just brutal. Do you remember that multiplayer mode? I think it was in Halo 4, the kind of esports mode?
Yeah.
It's kind of like that. So it's much more about, symmetrical maps, just going for it. And then, it's all about, it's kind of each map has sort of a design where it has like 3 lanes, left, right, and mid. And you can kind of, it'd be great to play it with someone over comms, because I reckon if you sync up, you're going to be pretty fucking deadly. So, I'm loving it, man. You blast through, after we've done this, finish the story.
Yeah.
Super good. Okay. Seriously.
Well, you finished.
I'd be curious to see what you thought of it as a whole. Put it that way. Right. So shall we truck on through? One game I want to just quickly shout out to because it's a bit different, and I doubt you'll be able to talk to it too much. But we had they do these free play weekends on Xbox Live for Gold members, I believe, and you got a couple of games usually are up pretty much every week, which are just free to play, to try and encourage you to buy them. And I checked out Age of Wonders Planetfall a couple of weeks ago, which is this turn-based, so think Civ kind of scale sci-fi strategy game, and it's like colonizing cities, but it's all on like futuristic alien worlds with sci-fi enemies, and I put probably like 20 hours into this game over that free weekend, because when I fall into the hole of playing those kinds of games, I just don't come out. Like for days. Sometimes the wife just leaves me alone and I just disappear. And it was really, really good. This game was excellent. I didn't, however, buy it because I felt like after 20 hours, I'd kind of got what I wanted from it, at least for the time being. But I do highly recommend it if you're in the mood for that type of game. It does some stuff with that pulled back, hexagonal-based Civ-style map, which is a bit different. So when you go into combat, you can actually go into like an XCOM-esque turn-based strategy game for every fight, if you wish, with your armies as they clash, which is totally different to Civ. You never do that in Civ. It's just like worked out in the background, the maths. So that's cool that there's this extra layer. Or you can just ignore that extra layer and just play it like Civ and let the computer decide who wins. So that's kind of cool. I just really enjoyed it. Yeah, it's a cool setting. Felt different. Liked the characters and the art style. Looked great. Played really well on the console. Really good port. So another one of those for me to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Have you had much
thing, but yeah, sounds interesting.
No, I know it's not your kind of thing. Have you had much time to play The Outer Worlds, Rich?
No, I was going to ask you about it because this is now out free on Game Pass, and is one of the next on my list to play, but I haven't yet downloaded it. So tell me about that.
It's brilliant.
Is that it?
It's free on Game. I mean, it's on Game Pass, like the quality of games showing up on this service continues to blow me away. I mean, we extol the virtues of Game Pass pretty much every time we talk together. Yeah. And that's not going to change now. Basically, this is the new kind of ginormous RPG from Obsidian, people that did Fallout New Vegas, Knights of the Old Republic 2, known for jumping in on sequels, not necessarily known for their own stuff as much, and also known for being a bit buggy and often requiring sort of post-release support. This game, however, pretty much no bugs. At least, I mean, most people were saying they've not come across any issues. I certainly didn't. The concept of this is sci-fi. You're in this solar system. You create your own character. You can basically play it however you want. You can be like a roguish gunslinger. You can all be about dialogue options and charisma. You can be an engineer. You can be fixing things. You can be just stupid, thick melee attack dude and just hit everybody with big swords and axes and hammers if you wish. So you can basically, however you want. My particular character, I've gone for kind of a bit of a charming Malcolm Reynolds kind of character. She's got really good gunslinging skills. She's got really good conversation skills. And she just goes around sort of charming people. And then if that doesn't work, shooting them in the face.
It looks like it's got kind of a Borderlands vibe. Should I worry about that?
No, nothing like Borderlands. If anything, it reminded me a lot of Fallout, but it looks a lot nicer than Fallout at the same time. Yeah. And one of the reasons they've been able to do that, I think, is because Fallout is obviously this huge, single, contiguous open world, where Outer Worlds are multiple locations across multiple planets, which is maybe the Borderlands similarity, the new Borderlands. So they're open environments, but they're not ginormous open worlds. So they're more contained, which means there is variety in the different biomes and the locations you go to. They're just not as big. So it's not quite on that scale, which I think works hugely in its favour because it makes the environmental design more funneled and more narrative driven at times, and it actually gets you to places without wandering around for hours. But there's still enough in there to explore and find little hidden bits and nooks and crannies and bits of lore and world stuff. I'm really enjoying it. It feels like Obsidian was like, we've got this concept, let's pare it down to a scale we can absolutely nail. where we can maximize what we're good at without trying to bite off more than we can handle.
Yeah.
And they've done it. They've really done it. And it's fucking part of Game Pass. This is on PC as well, I believe. It's you can get Outer Worlds on the PC version as part of Game Pass Ultimate if you have it. And that's great. I mean, it's a really cool experience. There's no reason why you shouldn't play it, Rich. I think it's really, really good.
It's definitely one to do. I've got sucked into those Game Pass quests, and that's one of them. So if anyone that doesn't know, if you're a member of Game Pass, well, even if you're not, I think these quests are available to everybody. But there's a series of quests that come out every month for you to earn Microsoft reward points, which can be translated into money to buy stuff. For playing games, essentially, and there's a few hundred points available for playing the Outer Worlds and getting a couple of achievements. So yeah, for that reason alone, I will give it a try. But yeah, you're right. The level of quality for releases on Game Pass, not just quality, but when they're coming out. I mean, this is just out, and it's free for Game Pass members. It's just ludicrous. I mean, this is a game I probably wouldn't have bought, but because I've got Game Pass, I will definitely try it. It just opens you up to new experiences, like no other service really. Well, I suppose it's like the Netflix that we said before, haven't we? It's like the Netflix of games. You'll try things out that you wouldn't have tried before because you've got nothing to lose. Why wouldn't you?
Yep. 100%. There's this, and this is a really cool game. I mean, like I said, I was building my character towards like speech and stuff like that. But speech skills have an effect in combat, which I think is brilliant. Like, so you are viable as a player in every different combat experience, even if you say a tech guy, because it'll have an effect in ways you don't always expect. I don't want to spoil it. You should definitely just play around with your build and see what happens. But it's got loads of nice little ideas. It's got these, what do they call them? Fail perks or something? I can't remember exactly the term for it. But for example, if you fall off a high space often enough and hurt your legs, you can take this sort of anti-stat hit. Like, say, if you fall from an area and hurt your legs, you'll be 30% slower, but we'll give you a perk point to put into something else instead. So it's kind of like a risk-reward sort of thing. Huh. I mean, I've never seen that before, and it applies to lots of things. Like, you keep getting hit in the head. Oh, you're permanently concussed, so your intellect takes a drop. But here's a perk point to put somewhere else really to, like, good. Make up for it. Yeah. The only thing I'd say is the difficulty kind of curve is a bit out of place at times. Like on regular, the game feels really easy, but if you put it on hard in places, it'll become incredibly challenging. Personally, I don't mind not being like overly challenged in combat scenarios, because this game isn't exactly about that. This is much more about exploring the world, going through the story, doing these quests. The writing is just fantastic throughout. You have companions in this game, a la, Mass Effect, so you can recruit people to join you on your ship, and then they can come out with you in missions, and you can build and spec into that, so you make your companions better by, say, giving yourself more leadership points, so they end up being able to buff you in other ways as well. So there are so many ways of building a viable build in this game, and just experimenting with the systems. I absolutely love it, man. There's so much to do. You've got to get in there and get on that quick.
Yeah,
got to play it.
I am going to give it a go. I'll set it to download in a minute.
Good man.
Try it later today.
Brilliant. So the final game we just wanted to quickly mention is Destiny 2. Obviously, I got Richard in on that.
Destiny 2 enough. So.
I never talk about Destiny 2 enough. I just wanted to mention it because Season of the Lost is happening right now, which is their Halloween-themed event. And that's actually a pretty good one. I do enjoy that one. They redo the look of the tower. Everything looks all kind of festive and sort of spooky. There's lots of there's a whole different game mode they introduced for this, which I can't remember the name of, but it uses the Infinite Forest area for the Vex, but kind of does it all in the darkness and stuff, and you have to go through it, various waves through it and stuff like that with people to try and earn candy, which can then get you new masks and buffs and weapons and stuff like that from the special seasonal vendor on the tower. And it's like I said, it's one of the more fun seasonal events they do, because everything looking a bit dark and spooky is kind of fun fun and different, and it's a cool look for Destiny. So yeah, I'm really enjoying that at the moment, and even better on my Elite Series 2 controller, which I've now got built a profile specifically for Destiny. So yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. You haven't gone back since playing it for review, have you, Rich?
No, not yet. Not because I don't want to, but just I've been trying different games. To my shame, I didn't put this in the notes, but I've been spending a lot of time playing Gears Pop on my phone.
I keep seeing you on my fucking friends list, wasting your fucking life on that stupid fucking game. Oh my god.
It's so good.
Play something good.
It's so good. It is a good game.
It's not good.
I'm enjoying it. What can I say?
It's crap.
I suppose they've got the science of that down, haven't they? They know how to hook you in with the microtransactions and shit. So, yeah.
How much money have you spent in it?
About 20 quid.
Oh, blimey. Wow. That's more than I thought you were going to say. Woo. Jeez Louise. Okay. Well, I think on that news, we'll have to end this segment of the podcast and come back with some news, because I can't bring myself to talk about Gears Pop.
Yeah. Let's cut it there.
Okay. We're back with the news. So let's start off with Blizzard. Oh, Blizzard. What a month they have had. So let's, I'm not going to spend...
like a blizzard of news.
About Blizzard.
Yeah.
I see what you did there. Not going to spend hours going over what happened. Very briefly, a Hearthstone player, after an event, decided to, on sort of the post-match interview, decided to show his support for the protesters in Hong Kong. Blizzard's reaction was to ban him from Hearthstone for a year and to take away his prize money from the event. They also banned, for a year, the people who were presenting this particular esport event. Things did not go well for them after that. People were not happy, so they changed it to a 6-month ban and gave him back his prize money. Off the back of this, a American esports team, after an event, a Hearthstone event, also showed their support for Hong Kong and were then also given a 6-month ban. At least they were now consistent with their banning policy. Now, this has gone down like a fucking lead balloon, as you'd expect. Lots of discussion over whether or not Western companies should be bowing to the importance of the Chinese market.
Which they say they're not doing, to be clear. They deny that that's why they're doing it.
Sure, we believe that. It's a big thing in America right now because Trump is very, very, very anti-China and anti the influence they have on the world. And to a degree, I agree with that. I don't often agree with Trump stuff. I don't know where you stand on all this, Richard. Is this a storm in a teacup, or is this something important that is worth discussing?
I think it's pretty important. Just so we're on the right side of history here, it's not just Trump that has a problem with China. I mean, he has a problem with China for his own reasons. I doubt they're humanitarian reasons. There's plenty of other countries that are decrying what China are doing generally. So, yeah, I think it's a just cause. It's difficult, though, isn't it? Because, obviously, if it's a cause you agree with, you'd say, yeah, why not? But if the shoe's on the other foot and it's something you really had a problem with, should it be allowed on that sort of media outlet? I don't know. It's a really hard question.
So this ties into what's just happened this week, where BlizzCon happened, and as anticipated, there were a bunch of protesters outside BlizzCon protesting against Blizzard and what they did, and they're putting the money, the almighty dollar, above freedom of speech, freedom of expression. And then the actual dude in charge of Blizzard, I couldn't tell you his name, he had long hair and looked like he shouldn't be running a company, but that's just me. He came out and sort of, I watched it. It wasn't exactly an apology over what they did. They didn't go back on the judgment of the ban, but they kind of acknowledged the fact that they were tone deaf and that they didn't listen to the fans and to the people that, you know, support the company and buy the products, and they kind of just went and made this unilateral decision, which then of course caused them no end of hurt when it came to mind share and, you know, their bottom line. What did you think of all that?
Are there any other instances of these sort of bans happening, or is it purely related to Hong Kong? So that's the test, isn't it? Because they're saying it's nothing to do with China's influence. They simply won't allow the support of political ideas on an official channel like that, and they're quite happy.
Yeah, I'm not aware of any.
No. But they're quite happy for people and players to express themselves in whichever way they want to express them, just not on that channel. You might think that's a reasonable position, but you'd expect there to be equivalent examples beyond this one where they've taken similar action. Is there anything? I don't know of any.
No, I'm not aware of any, and I've done some reading around this. I've listened to a lot of commentary on various podcasts over the last month, people talking about this as the issue has developed and unfolded, and as far as I know, I haven't heard a single example of them banning anyone, especially not in that severe a way, for anything said on an esports sort of broadcast. No. Obviously, this China issue is coming up in all kinds of ways right now, in things like the NBA and other areas. And this is obviously all. I mean, China has does a lot of shit that's questionable, but the most recent stuff is the stuff in Hong Kong, the way they are, you know, very violently in certain cases trying to quash these protesters and these demonstrations. But, you know, there are violent acts happening on both sides of that. So. It's very difficult, and it seems to be a line people are coming out on either side of, and it's one of those issues that there isn't a lot of sort of middle ground, it would seem. It's easy for us, you know, in the UK and stuff to not have to engage with this. We've obviously got our own stuff going on right now with a lot of politics and things like that. So it's tricky, but I think it's something you should be aware of, that these people, you know, we got Brexit sucks, but there are people literally fighting in the streets for democratic freedom right now. In a very Western style nation, so it's crazy that that's going on, and it's a big PR mistake on Blizzard's part to get on the other side of that. And it makes it really hard to get excited about things that they've just announced at BlizzCon. Really, doesn't it?
Yeah. The return of Overwatch is pretty exciting for someone.
I like the return, like it went away.
Well, I say that because in the trailer it talks about Overwatch being back. So yeah, it's kind of a return in the sense that Overwatch 2 has just been announced with a prolonged CGI trailer. Was it 8-10 minutes long?
It felt like 8 hours. Yeah.
It's really well done though. I mean,
yes,
you've got to give them props for how well they do their CGI. I mean, it's on Pixar level, isn't it? It's really well done.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it looks incredible. And I mean, they've shown some gameplay as well at BlizzCon, and the takeaway from this is that there is going to be a story-based PvE mode, and there is going to be things like character leveling and, you know, unlockable skills. So they're bringing in new levels of customization and character sort of buildability, I guess, into the Overwatch experience, which has not been there in the original. Obviously new characters and new maps, which would be a given really. There is no time frame on when this game is coming out, however. They have not mentioned that at all. I would suspect the next console generation. What about you?
Yeah, that's not a bad shout, is it? Yeah, good idea. So we haven't seen any gameplay or anything. It's purely the CGI revisiting.
They have shown there is gameplay out there, but it's not a lot.
I've not seen that.
It's very minimal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it looks like Overwatch.
Right.
You know, it looks like Overwatch. It doesn't really look that different.
Okay.
And in addition to that, you're less excited about this, but for me, it's a big deal. Diablo IV finally confirmed to exist, which is in a shock to no one, considering there was also in the last couple of weeks leaks of a Diablo art book, which included art from Diablo IV in it. Right. So it's like, oh, nicely done, Blizzard. Kept that one tight to, you know, close shit there. But that had a 10-minute, very dark, very operatic and sinister CGI trailer that was frankly disturbing, but in a kind of a way that makes you interested in the product. And it looked incredible. And then they've shown a bit of gameplay of that, and guess what? It's Diablo. Looks a bit nicer, but it's still Diablo. So top down action RPG, plenty of different characters types to choose from, which are going to have more customization options this time. And again, no time frame on the release date. But when it's done is what they've said. But you know, this is not exactly the most thrilling announcements, because they were always going to happen, weren't they?
Yeah, I mean, they're not surprises, but it's nice to see so much work going into the trailers, right? I mean, that Overwatch thing. I did enjoy Overwatch 1. I haven't played it a lot recently. I think I reviewed it back when it came out and played it for a little while after that, and really enjoyed it, actually. Didn't think I was that excited for an Overwatch 2, but this trailer, they're so charming, aren't they? These characters, it does make you want to play it again. And I'm glad to hear that there's going to be some sort of story element to it. So they're making use of those characters, because they do kind of go to waste in multiplayer.
A lot of thought goes into the design of those guys, because it's all about creating distinctive silhouettes.
Yeah. Because
of the way the game plays, and yeah, they really think long and hard about their character design, and they do look fantastic. Yeah, they really do. So I'd be more interested in that now that there's going to be some PvE. I might be drawn back into that. So from one piece of contentious news to another, the annually released WWE franchise game, WWE 2K20, came out in the last week or two, and it was literally the most dumpster fire of dumpster fires. It was a train wreck in Glitch Town. Oh my god. And it's very telling, because I have reviewed, I think, every WWE game this generation, and they've been, the guys at 2K and stuff have been generous enough to send copies of them out to us for review. That did not happen this year. They went radio silent, like completely silent on me. I was talking to them, they knew it was going to come, they told me they were going to get a copy, and then I didn't. And it was just like, oh, this would be because your game is fucked. Like, you do not want... I believe this wasn't just my outlet. A lot of people didn't get copies of this game this year. And it's a fucking train wreck. Like, it's one of the worst looking games I've seen in a while. Everything from just... So, I've watched video of people just going through the roster of the wrestlers. None of them look right. Like... I went and put 2K19 on just to remind myself of the level that was at. And it's like they've travelled back 5 years in the quality of the visual representations of the characters. Richard, as someone who enjoys wrestling, I recommend you do that. Have a look at them as well. I was pissing myself laughing at some of the character models. They are so wrong, and so, like, unless it had the name of the character under them, you would not know it was that character, that wrestler. You really fucking wouldn't, like, some of the time. They were so bad. And then it just...
that wrong?
I don't know. It's like they threw out all of the models from last year. So there was some behind-the-scenes stuff. Ukes is no longer developing the WWE games. They left, and they'd been kind of on the way out for a couple of years and been doing more and more with Visual Concepts. And Visual Concept have been kind of becoming more and more of the developer. This year is the first time, however, it's just been Visual Concepts. And Ukes kind of just walked away completely. They're doing their own thing now. And the only thing I can think of is that they didn't give them any of the assets or something. I don't know what happened. Wow. It's a nightmare. And I mean, that's just from a kind of basic character model stance. There's so much other wrong with it. There's disappearing referees, pins not being counted properly, hair falling off the characters and like glitching out above them so it didn't sit properly, models not loading in properly, people falling through the mats, moves not landing. For some reason as well, Visual Concepts decided to move all the buttons. So, what you have got used to as the control scheme of a WWE game for the last, I don't know how many years, at least this generation, the whole generation, they've just changed everything. So, like, the counter button is now on Y instead of the triggers, for example. Strike button's now on a different place. Grapple button's a different button. Like, why would you do that? Why would you change it all like that? There's literally no reason to do that. It's just been a dumpster fire. They've just released a patch to address some of these issues. At this time, I'm not aware of how much they've done to actually fix things. But beyond the glitches and stuff like that, I feel like at the core of this experience, the fundamentals are fucked this year. And I'm really glad I wasn't sent that for review, because struggling through it on a good year can be bad, though the last couple I've actually been quite positive about. I've really enjoyed them. But this year, happy to skip it. Well, very, very happy to skip it. Not to mention I'm also kind of off the wrestling bandwagon at the minute as well. Yeah, though I am watching AEW on ITV. I highly recommend that, Richard, if you're not. Because anybody can watch that.
Sort that out. Maybe I'll give that a look. Yeah, but it's...
Yeah, no, it's very good. It's very good.
It's lucky they didn't send you the game, because otherwise you would have spent 10 minutes slagging the game off, wouldn't you?
It's lucky that, isn't it?
Dodged a bullet there.
Oh, it did, didn't it? Yeah, they really did. I mean, saying that, it would have been a dedicated video of me slagging it off. This way, it's just buried in a podcast, so I think they'd probably be happier. It's just wow. Right, so that from one train wreck to something that looked like it was going to be a train wreck, but now I'm kind of coming around on. So they've kind of released this short 3-minute video of the Avengers game that's coming out next April. And, after it's showing at E3, and there was another showing as well that happened after that, everybody was a bit like, what is this? Why does this look so wrong? And I think a lot of people's problems were the likenesses aren't that from the movies, but they were never going to be, so just get over that already.
That was the takeaway, wasn't it? It's like, that's not Chris Evans and that's not Robert Downey Jr. What the hell is this? So, yeah, I think...
But it was never going to be that. That's not what they were trying to do. They're not making a movie game. This is their own thing. But now we've had some video of what the actual game loop might be, how the story missions will connect, what the loot systems are going to be like, what the kind of co-op multiplayer modes will be like. And from what I can tell, this is Destiny and Anthem meets Marvel. Does that sound bad to you? Because that sounds great to me.
That's pretty awesome to me. From someone who enjoyed Anthem far too much and has mourned the passing of Anthem. It doesn't know it's dead yet, I don't think, but it is. It would be nice to see something in that vein that has longevity. I think Avengers, if anything, is going to give that some legs, that concept some legs. And I'm interested to try it out. It looked pretty good. I think we've got a little wait till it comes out. Is it May?
April. But saying that period of time, which was looking quite empty, is now looking a lot more full, which we might as well talk about now. God damn it. All the games I wanted to play, Richard, all the games delayed. All of them. Like, what the fuck is going on with this? So, we talked about Ubisoft's Breakpoint and Division 2 earlier on in the second part of the podcast. And what this means for they had a financial sort of meeting about this. What that means is they are kind of delaying and reevaluating a lot of their games for next year. So the one I was particularly excited for, Watch Dogs Legion, has got pushed back, as has Gods and Monsters and Rainbow Six Quarantine. Watch Dogs Legion was going to be I think it was like a February-March game, and now I think they said that's going to be more like the summer. Which is I'm bummed about, because I was really looking forward to playing that. I thought the idea of the no single protagonist thing, and anybody can be part of your crew and you can recruit anybody from the world, it looked so ambitious and exciting, and I was really up for that. But that's been delayed as well now. I mean, what do you think about? I mean, Richard, you're obviously, you've already said, you're kind of lukewarm on the Ubisoft games anyway. Yeah. So I imagine to you this isn't that much of a problem.
Not a big deal, not a rush for me. I kind of wait till they're out, wait till they've bedded in. If there's something worth playing when it's been out for 2 or 3 months, then I'll probably pick that time to try it out. But yeah, for release day stuff, I would never have been going there anyway, so not a problem for me. More of a problem for them, it sounds like, in terms of the business side of this. It does mean that...
Yeah, I think they're going to have to weather a financial hit, because it sounds to me like these two games having problems the way they has made them wake up a little bit to, the systems they're employing in their games. Are they up to snuff? And if that means we get a better game, then I can't really complain, can I? So, if Watch Dogs Legion is even better because of this delay and it gets more work done to it, then that'll be better for everybody.
Well,
you just have to sort of suck it up.
To do it. I mean, it grinds my gears a bit when games come out that aren't finished, like you've had with Ghost Recon Breakpoint. You've paid full price for it. But by the time it's fixed, you're not going to play it until it is fixed. In the meantime, the value of that game is going down, so people who buy it when it's ready will be paying half the price you did. That's not the right way to do business. So I think,
no, that's pisses a lot of people off. It's pissed me off. Yeah.
So yeah, far better for them to delay the release until it's actually ready and keep their customers on side. I would have thought.
So we'll just move on to the next delay. That's kind of a surprising one, actually. So it was only recently that they came out and gave us The Last of Us Part 2, 21st of February next year. You know, a really hardcore date. Like, this is it. And it only just happened. And that's been delayed into the 29th of May. That's a weird one, isn't it? Because that's not a long delay, and it was a date they'd just given.
Yeah, I wonder what that's about.
It's a bit curious, that. I'm trying to think if they were trying to get out of the way of other games, maybe. I mean, that was looking, February, March was looking already quite busy, wasn't it? You've also got things like Cyberpunk in that area as well. Maybe they were just sort of like, you know, let's just move it back a bit. So that it doesn't now clash. One other thing I want to mention with those Ubisoft games, confirmed, these will all be cross-generational games now.
Oh. What,
so Legion, Gods and Monsters and Rainbow Six will all now also be on the next generation of hardware.
What have they said about that? I mean,
not a lot.
So we don't
so whether that means if you buy it...
Or...
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? If you buy it on the Xbox One, is it going to work on Scarlet or not? We don't really know enough about how that's going to work yet. I believe if Xbox had their way, from the vibe I get with their current business strategy, it would be yes, it would. But that's not going to be completely up to them, is it?
No,
so it's going to be curious.
Yeah, I mean that's critical in purchasing decisions, but not so much if you're, you know, for stuff that's on Game Pass, who cares? But beyond that, if you're buying games and there's a possibility that you want the best version on the new console, you're going to hold off buying the current gen, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be very. It's going to make these decisions even more tricky. So the other delay, God, there was another one. There's been so many. Doom Eternal. Oh, mate. I literally was crying. I was crying about this.
I can't believe it. That's your favourite.
So this was due out November 22nd, like just around the fucking corner. Yeah, and it's been pushed back all the way to March 20th.
Yeah, that's astounding that that's happened, because we're within weeks of the release date.
Yeah.
I mean, they must be almost going to press the discs.
Yeah, I mean, not far from going gold at that point. All I can think of is that deadline was approaching and they were like, we're not going to be ready. This isn't ready. We can't do this. You know, so they've had to delay it. You know, that's slightly concerning. In news associated with that, one of the multiplayer modes that has been touted for the game is now not going to be available at launch.
Ooh.
And sort of as a make good, they're going to include Doom 64 with every pre-order now of Doom Eternal, the port of Doom 64 that's going to be coming to Xbox One and PS4 and Switch. I've never played Doom 64, so I'm kind of happy about that. I'll definitely give that a go. But yeah, this was a last-minute delay right up to the end of the financial year. So I feel like that's a delay as far as they could delay it.
Yeah.
So heart goes out to the guys at id, because that probably means you've already been crunching for 6 months, and you're now going to be crunching for another 4. So that sucks, doesn't it?
Yeah, so is anything coming out for Christmas?
Not much now, no.
So
it's looking pretty bare. I mean, the one big game that comes out this week that we will talk about at some point in the future, I would definitely be playing, is Death Stranding, because the reviews just dropped for that, and it sounds like a fucking weird game, which I definitely want to play. Mostly because it's weird, not because it's good or bad.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm desperate to try it out just because.
When was the last time you saw a game that had a split in review scores from 3 out of 10 to 10 out of 10?
Yeah, that's mental.
I mean, what the fuck, man? That is just bizarre. So
whatever
it's meant to be this.
Be a trip, isn't it? That?
Yeah, it's going to be an experience. Whether or not I put in the 50 or 60 hours to finish it is another question. But I definitely want to try it, so I will be getting my copy this week, because that's the kind of glutton for punishment I am, perhaps. I don't know, maybe I'll love it. I really don't know. I've read a bunch of reviews, watched a bunch of videos, and I still don't know if I'm going to like that game. which doesn't happen, which I'm kind of excited about. Strange, huh? But yeah, that's all of the delay news. Yeah, and there's no more games this year, basically. So that saves us some money for now, I guess. The final piece of news I wanted to throw out there was this weird Stadia thing, right? So Google Stadia is coming this month, within a few weeks, right? Yeah. I forget who I think it was Polygon said this seems to be the first ever early access console release, which is sounding more and more correct as we get closer. I had this pre-ordered. I have subsequently cancelled my pre-order.
Oh my god!
Because
I didn't realise you pre-ordered it.
So I pre-ordered it when it was like first put up for pre-order, right? The first announcement happened, and I was like, "Oh, it's not that expensive. It sounds cool. I really want to give this a go." But as things have moved on, as you know, you have to subscribe to Stadia. Oh, but that doesn't include any games, things like that. And now the Wi-Fi controller, which was going to work sort of independently to your device and connect itself to your Wi-Fi network, will now not work with anything except if you're playing Stadia through the Chromecast. Or I think maybe a specific type of phone. I'm like, what? Like, I'm just going to wait 6 months to see, A, if they fix all this shit, and B, if the service even still exists.
Yeah.
Because it sounds like if it works and it's amazing and they sort out some of the library issues and the connectivity issues, brilliant. But right now, I don't want to pay to be a beta tester. I'm not in the mood for that, not with hardware.
The problem that they've got is this needs to be really good and it needs to work really well. Else, there's no point in having it at all. You've got stuff like xCloud coming, which basically serves the same function. I haven't tested it yet. I'm going to test it later today. But if that does a similar thing and gives me the best of both worlds, I can actually have a console to play games on that isn't dependent on net speed wherever I am. You know, I would rather have that than this Stadia concept that doesn't even do what its main selling point is, at least at the moment. The whole point of it was the simplicity of just having a controller and using it wherever you are. But it's not quite...
On any device, basically, yeah.
But it's not quite that easy, is it? So you can't use it wirelessly, you can't use it on every device. If that stuff doesn't work, the basic concept stuff doesn't work, how reliable is the service itself going to be in streaming games? I mean, they've said that it will be fine, but the underlying concern that people have had since this was announced was, well, is it going to be 100% reliable? Because you need it to be if you're going to have this as a replacement to a traditional console or a PC.
Yeah.
So I'm not convinced. I wasn't convinced in the beginning, but they're doing all the wrong things to really entrench my idea of where this is going. I don't think it's going to last at all.
I mean, it's Google, so they've got runway. They can take it failing for a good while before they have to give up on it. But
they can, but we know that they don't. They cancel all sorts of things after running them for a couple of years, like Google Glass.
This is true.
Have a track record of interesting concepts. They'll try them out for a little bit, but they're not hesitant to bin them off if they know it's not going to work.
The reason that I'm so interested in xCloud is that it's an additive service to my Xbox ecosystem that I already have.
Yes.
Whereas Google Stadia is an entirely new ecosystem that I would have to invest in.
Yes.
So I'm not sure that works. You know, maybe it works if you're a PC gamer, but even then, it's not like you can bring all your Steam library in.
No.
You know, if you could do something like that, then it would be incredible. For example, Origin is just about to integrate into Steam. EA have kind of acknowledged that it doesn't work by itself anymore. So in the next few months, EA games are starting to come back to Steam, and then Origin is actually going to be something you could subscribe to through Steam. So, even Origin knows, even EA knows it doesn't work anymore by themselves. They need to integrate with the bigger platform.
Yeah. Well,
how is Google going to get in on that?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it looks arrogant, doesn't it, what Google are doing? They think this is going to fly. They still don't really have any big games that are selling this as a platform.
I did look at the lineup of games that will be there at launch, and it was quite underwhelming. It wasn't great. And they have to buy them all again. It's like, why would you want to do that?
Yeah.
You know?
They seem to have out-Nintendo'd Nintendo on this online gaming idea. You know, we thought Nintendo were the worst with their online element, but this looks terrible.
I'm going to be very curious to see, things such as, they had this Founders Edition pack, which was meant to be exclusive to people, that they could get it. And then I don't know if it's sold out or they pulled it. And then a new pack came out, which would be like the early adopters pack.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, does that mean your demand has been high enough to justify that? Or does it mean you passed that date, didn't get enough interest, and then had to rebrand it? Do you know what I mean? It's a bit questionable as to who's buying this and who's interested. Because I know, like I said, I cancelled my pre-order. I can imagine I wasn't alone in that. So yeah, it's exciting to watch it happen. I'm going to be really interested to see how Stadia develops next to xCloud. xCloud is going to be this year. Like, we're deep in the tests now. We're into the second phase of the play testing this, and they're opening it up to more and more people. It's definitely going to be this year. And already the feedback has been hugely positive. I'm reading on the official Reddit channels and stuff like that. So I wish I could test it. I just don't. I don't have the Google, the Android stuff to try out on. But yeah, I mean, if that works, I'm going to be all over that. That's such a cool idea. But yeah.
Kind of makes me glad I stuck with Android, because I was really close to getting an iPhone last month. And then just got a new Android phone. But
I was literally looking at Android tablets on Amazon going, should I buy one just so I can do this? And then I had a little bit of sense and didn't. A little bit. I don't normally. I fought off the urge. Right. I think that brings us to the end of episode 7 of the Experience Kills podcast, don't you, Richard?
I think that is probably us. You're going to have a job editing out my coughs.
I will probably not do all of it.
Yeah. So if any of my coughs stay in, I'm really sorry, listeners. But I've been ill, like I said at the beginning, for a couple of weeks. I'm still not over it. So you're lucky I even got out of bed today, frankly. But apologies if that's annoying.
I hope you've enjoyed that episode. By all means, get on Twitter. Follow us at Experience Kills. You can follow me at DIYE. You can follow Richard at Colonel Red. Yeah. And he's not here today, but we hope to have him in soon. You can also follow Cameron, who did a couple of videos with me recently on the channel. He's at Camelot. And we'd love to get him in on a podcast one of these days. We're going to try and do that. You can obviously watch us on YouTube. So please like and subscribe on there. That's all we ask. Nothing else. And you can listen to all of this on your favourite podcasting app as well. We have audio versions to everything we produce, and the links to that are all found in the YouTube videos. I think that's everything for today, don't you, Richard?
I think we are done. So I'm going to go and have some...
We're coming up on the end of our first year.
Yeah.
There are plans in place for some developments, but I don't want to say anything more than that right now. But it's been a really good year. We've had lots of new subscribers recently, so I will say at the end of the podcast, I probably should have done this at the beginning, hello to all of you, and I hope you're enjoying things, and by all means leave us some feedback on one of our many channels. So until next time, bye.
Goodbye.